Now, moving on to the next section of this event, which is the live Q&A with Philippe, Ben, and Vishal. So please do send in your questions through the interface in your web browser, and we will do our best to answer as many as we can, and the rest we will be sure to answer them on email. So as I'm looking to see, there's already questions starting to flow in. Quite a few technical questions about agent, etc., which I will address, of course. But here's a question, maybe Philippe. Here's a question for you. Is while multi-vector EDR looks like a very interesting approach, which is very different and more comprehensive, how do you see, from a go-to-market perspective, competing with established players like CrowdStrike?
Thank you for the question. We have, in fact, quite a few distinctive advantages beyond the technology itself. First, we have a large customer base of more than 15,000 companies worldwide and 70% of the global 100, to whom we could upsell our multi-vector EDR offering. Second, we have now more than 40 million agents already deployed, and upgrading them to add EDR functionalities is almost instantaneous. So our customers can easily try and buy at a click of a mouse. And third, we have broad partnership with most of the MSSPs, and our cloud platform that now provides unified prevention, detection, and response is exactly what they are looking for to provide a better solution to their customers while drastically reducing their cost. So as you can see, we believe we are extremely well positioned to really enter the EDR marketplace, not to mention that, as you have seen with the presentation of Sumedh, we're also moving now into providing the next generation of incident response system, which we plan to go beta by the end of the year. And our EDR app is going to be fully integrated, of course, natively integrated into this extension of our cloud platform. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Philippe. And we also have a couple other folks here on the panel for the Q&A. Joining me from Mumbai, India, is Vishal Salvi, who is the head of security at Infosys, and also Ben Carr, who has joined recently at Qualys as the CISO for the Qualys, our own internal security. So I'd like both of them introduced. Maybe Vishal, you want to go first?
Hey, hi Sumedh. Thank you for having me here today. So I am responsible for global security for Infosys, really protecting Infosys and its customers from cybersecurity frauds and risks. But also responsible for go-to-market, responsible for managing the cybersecurity business for our customers.
Thank you. Welcome. Ben?
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Sumedh. My name is Ben Carr. As Sumedh mentioned, I'm now the Chief Information Security Officer for Qualys. I've been a customer of Qualys for a long time, and so trying to bring the voice of the customer to Qualys, and hopefully look forward to handling internal security for Qualys.
All right, good. So I hopefully both of you enjoyed the demo and the session so far, and some of the insights that I tried to provide in Qualys approach to multi-vector EDR by taking into consideration a lot of other elements that go into EDR other than just the telemetry that comes at the endpoint. So maybe I'll start off, Vishal. I have a bunch of questions from different folks, but I'll start off maybe by asking you to, we just recently Qualys, and one of the things you do, as you mentioned, is also you head the managed service aspect, as well as leveraging Qualys and other security tools internally for Infosys' own use. So my question is around how do you see the stack consolidation helping you both internally as well as providing services to your customers, right? Being able to have multiple capabilities through fewer agents and fewer platforms.
So Sumedh, I am extremely excited because it is a very good strategic fit for us in terms of our mission, in terms of what we want to do for our customers. We've been, partners with you. We've been consuming your solutions at Infosys at scale for so many years now, and that partnership has really grown very deep. And so we really understand your solutions and product, which are world class, and so we want to get those solutions to our customers, right? Having used them so well and derived so much value, we believe it can amplify that value to our customers through this, so really very excited about it. The fact that now you are getting more deeper, adding more features, and adjacency to your product sets is only a great advantage for us. We've been really been very successful in use of VMDR for so many years, and it's deeply embedded in terms of what we do for ourselves as well as for our customers. So we want to now, this is a very logical extension for us to really get, basically fulfill the core objective of MDR in real sense by having one solution delivering both the values of VMDR as well as MDR.
And do you see that will resonate when you look at it on the cybersecurity practice side? You feel like that's something that will help your team and will resonate with your customers as well to be able to be more nimble in providing these capabilities?
Yeah, absolutely. Because one is in terms of the deep, integration that is required between a vulnerability, a patch, and a remediation, right? And it's always been a CISO's dream to be able to do everything together through one system, through one console, and through one set of policies, right? Because as it is always a challenge to have multiple solutions getting deployed and trying to do a siloed kind of a remediation or acting on that specific objective for that particular product. I think that doesn't scale. It sounds good from a point of view of having too many solutions, and it looks great on your architecture, but it really doesn't give you that value, especially when you want to make sure that every single asset of yours is protected. And in today's world, when the number of attacks, the frequency of attack, the intensity of the attacks, and the variety of threats is growing so faster, we have to have a solution which can just not give you the breadth of functionalities, but helps you to go deep and ensure every single asset is getting covered, for that. So I think from that point of view, it really would resonate quite well, and I think we would make a big impact in the market.
Great. I mean, I think this is also about having the security analyst have as much possible context as quickly and as with as fewer consoles as possible, because that's one of the things that a lot of time is spent on just trying to find that needle in the haystack. So more correlated information about the asset, about everything is what really we're focusing on. And I think, Ben, you've done this many times in your life at different places, and this notion of bringing prevention, which is VMDR, and and then the detection response, which is EDR, together on a single platform. I think that is something that's different, and I wanted to get your perspective on that. Just putting yourselves in the shoes of somebody who has to deliver all of this for the management. How do you see that approach from Qualys is going to change things for you?
Yeah, that's a great point, Sumedh. I think, my background, I think I've been a vocal proponent of this with Qualys for a long time. Like, one of the biggest things that I need, if I'm running a program, is actually the true context, right? I've been a big believer in context. And for me, context isn't just, the information when you run a scan and you get good information about the vulnerability. It's about the asset itself. So I think the ability for Qualys to pull together and actually deliver that asset information in a true perspective where I can see, everything relative to that asset, and then, combine that with vulnerability data, and then, the context allows me to then know what action to take. So am I going to roll a patch to that? Am I going to have to reach out, before we push some remediation activity to verify because it's it's a critical system for us. And then, being able to look at how that integrates with EDR. And when I actually have an incident, being able to pivot not just from the context of that individual asset, but see the other assets that are in the environment that may be configured similarly or have a similar vulnerability, and then run that remediation or at least track down and start working the problem from that perspective is hugely valuable. And I think not only valuable from the perspective of that individual incident, but also recapturing time. And that's been one of the biggest things, is how do you get back time? So I'd like my analysts to focus on those more high level tasks and information security, and the stuff that I can run with more automation. I'm certainly going to do that, because that's a big value to me when I'm running a program.
Okay, good. And I think maybe a little bit more elaboration, and I'm just kind of summarizing some of the questions that are coming in, is the value of the vulnerability configuration context to EDR, from what you've seen in the past, and you've dealt with incidents that keep coming up, and you always hear like how long it took to detect and actually find out what exactly was going on. So can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah. So it's typical for, that how we dealt with the problem, in that we treat these as independent issues, and only, very high maturity or very large organizations can afford to put together these fusion centers where they're actually able to custom design a solution to bring this data together. And so when an analyst typically sees an issue, sees an incident, sees something happening, he's scrambling to try to get all the relevant context that he needs to then take an action, right? But that's typically been limited to that individual asset he's looking at. He doesn't have the ability to pivot very quickly and say, okay, I see that this this exploit is being used. The box got compromised or has an issue on it, or I believe it may have something happening. And so tell me what vulnerabilities are on that box that may have been the compromise point, and how then do I pivot quickly to say, show me the other 50 systems in the environment that have that vulnerability. Show me, what the status of those applications is. What's the criticality? What are they related to? What has this system talked to, right? So being able to look with the passive scanner and being able to say, okay, I can see not just the next system, but I can see several systems that are related because I see the communication channel. And so then that gives me the ability to pivot and say, okay, while I may have, a bunch of these vulnerabilities in the environment, what do I treat from a priority perspective, and how do I triage this instance to make sure that I'm tackling it in the quickest way possible? And at the end of the day, from a CISO perspective, I think we look at things, and if you're talking with the board, usually you're not saying, we're never going to have an incident, right? The smart CISO is talking to the board and say, what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to recover as quickly and painlessly as possible. And so this context and being able to pivot like that really, stops the issues in their tracks. It gets to the core of the problem and addresses them before I have lateral movement or spread. And that's at the end of the day what the value proposition is for me. What I'm trying to do is prevent that lateral movement or spread and prevent additional impact to the organization.
Okay, good. So one of the questions I have follow up with that, Vishal, is that the tools are getting better. The platform's really helping bring all of this together in one sort of a platform where you have a single console to do a lot of that. But then there's still certain things that the analysts need to do. And I was wondering, where do you see with your practice that you guys add that value in addition to help customers, because a lot of customers don't have the expertise maybe that is needed after all of the detection remediation has been done to take additional actions or additional analysis maybe.
No, I think that's a great question, Sumedh. I think what's happening is clearly, the new age technologies are moving on to cloud and adopting the power of cloud for analytics, and the sensors are becoming more and more stronger to actually do the groundwork which is required for remediation, that both for EDR as well as from VMDR. So you need, and so we find ourselves as Infosys to get naturally transformed from a system integrator to system orchestrator. And I think that role is going to get more profound and amplified because of this change which is happening. And we still have a lot of local security happening with niche players playing an important role. But given that things are moving on to cloud, I think global players like us will have a much stronger role to play in defining how that value is delivered to our customers, right? So I think we see that as a major opportunity for us to be able to be that orchestrator, but also over a period of time, when you have a global reach of various customers, you get diversity of attacks, and and you build an expertise of how to configure the solutions. I would like to be in a position where eventually my team is able to identify hidden features and get more expertise on Qualys, and become a complete subject matter experts, right? And I think that's the advantage that we have, to be able to give that quick value at scale to our customers. So I think that's the opportunity that we see in the market.
Okay, good. All right. So I'm gonna take a few of the questions that are coming from the audience right now, and a lot of them are related to the agent. And so I think the first question that everybody is asking is it going to be a different agent for EDR? And the answer is no. So one of the ways we've architected this solution is really to ensure that that same Qualys agent today that is doing inventory and vulnerability assessment is the agent that is also being able to take that information and then send it back to the platform, and then we can do EDR there. So that's one of the things that we are doing, is to make sure that we can leverage the same agent, and we are able to actually not increase the agent sprawl. So that's one of the questions that came up. The second question that has come up is about it's related, but the patch management is going to be done by the same agent that is doing EDR, which is really the advantage there. So we can take response action on both sides, right? Response on prevention, which is deploying your patches, also fixing your configurations, and the response side on the EDR as well. Another question that has come up is around response actions. So is that going to be a manual process or an automated process? And the answer is that we are today providing capabilities for the customers and for the users and the analysts to take response actions after reviewing the information that they're seeing. But then we will also be doing that with automated policy-based responses in a follow-up release pretty soon there as well. So Ben, you another question that is related to VMDR, but as you've come on board, that was right at the peak of VMDR. So I wanted to also see what thoughts you have more on VMDR and the prioritization that it offers, and how that actually would help a CISO.
Yeah, again, I think it gets back to completing the life cycle, right? So quite often we see in an organization the CISO is kind of in a way siloed in security, and operations is siloed under the CIO. Even if the CISO works for the CIO, there's often some the challenges, right, in working in a holistic sense. And so I think one of my experiences in the past has just been having millions of vulnerabilities and trying to figure out how to address those in a timely fashion. And the operations team is always challenged with the notion of, how do we do our daily job? How do we create that operational task which we're held to? And, we have MBOs and responsibility stores. But at the same time, address these security issues. It's often not that the operations team doesn't want to address security. It's that they feel challenged because there's a lack of time. Right. And so as I mentioned before, like one of the big values is how do I get time back for my analysts? How do I get time back for operations? So I think being able to partner with the operations team and look at, it's certainly on the front side at the low hanging fruit, at those things like, workstations where that there's a low likelihood of a patch, causing an issue with the system, turning on that automation and saying, if I see a vulnerability, automatically pushing that patch to that vulnerability and allowing that completion of life cycle to happen, still maintaining the tracking and all the the issues that you need to in the environment to make sure you're handling good practices. But being able to push that and free up those cycles is really valuable for that partnership. And so one of my beliefs is that security really needs to form that tight partnership with IT operations and become, kind of through service, like a trusted partner to them, right? Offer that value proposition. And, when we've done that in the past, we've been very successful. So I look at VMDR as one of those areas where it really enables that. I also just want to highlight quickly, like, the concept of cloud came up, and in a lot of these actions, whether it be, VM, whether it be the patch management, whether it be EDR, typically we see, from an operations perspective, there's different solutions that target cloud platforms. There's different solutions that target on-prem. Even, in a specific function like a VM or an EDR or a patching, it's nice to be able to have a platform that was truly built in the cloud and formed for the cloud and allows us to, no matter where that asset is, whether it's a temporal asset in the cloud, a long-term asset on-prem in a data center, be able to handle that response action in really the same way. And so I'm not looking for separate solutions, even in those siloed
That's a
areas
great point. I think,
security.
and this probably is something that Vishal can elaborate a little bit more on as well, because they adopted VMDR recently across the board, and one of the big things that they moved on is to really leverage Qualys for patching the remote endpoints also. So, Vishal, maybe if you can provide a little bit more thoughts on, though you had a existing provider which was more of an on-prem patching provider, you guys decided to move more towards a cloud-based patching, especially with the remote workforce. And if you can provide some thoughts on what went into that decision making, that would be very beneficial.
Yeah, sure. I can tell you one thing, Sumedh. Qualys is very famous at Infosys because the amount of patches that are coming out these days. I think the whole organization, leadership, board, and the employees recognize how important patching is. But I think there are so many restarts which are required right now. But that's the reality of our today's technology, right? I mean, and also the size of patches which are coming up are just crazy. I'm delighted and happy to say that it's gone quite well so far. We've kind of see the way we work at Infosys is that we partner very closely with technology team, but security team is completely independent of the technology organization. We decide the policy, we decide the architecture, and we work in collaboration with the technology team to drive and deliver the operations. This is one area where the technology team has not only adopted it for patching and remediation, but they are also now using Qualys for deep visibility of unauthorized software. So I think I'm very happy to say that the adoption has gone quite well. And although these are early days, but I'm fairly confident and happy that the way the journey has been so far. We have, and also the challenge has been that if you look at the technologies which are out there, they would be good in solving a particular problem. Say, for example, Windows operating system or some particular flavors of other operating systems or applications. But I think Qualys gives you a holistic a view and control over various things, whether it's apps, infra apps, as well as operating system altogether. And so
Okay, good. Yeah,
that's a
that
big
goes into
advantage for us,
the
Sumedh.
notion of beyond the vulnerabilities and the configuration and malware, etc. I think one of the biggest things that everybody's striving towards is that global asset inventory. And I think that asset inventory being part of that same solution gives a very good in-depth view into what's running. You mentioned about end of life and unauthorized software and things like that. So, uh, Ben, maybe a follow-up question for you is, we've talked in the past about how critical asset inventory is, and maybe you were at your previous organization and you guys were working on getting that up-to-date asset inventory, right? I mean, everybody has an asset inventory, it's just really not up-to-date, right? It's always out of date, so to say. And so you are working on integration with ServiceNow, etc., and maybe some thoughts there would be helpful for our customers.
Yeah, no, I'm really glad you brought that up. I've been, we kind of touched a little bit on the theme of asset management, asset information throughout this, but for me, it's really strange. If you go to an organization, and I've worked internally as a CISO, I've worked, in security teams, I've worked for vendors in the past. I can't remember ever going to a customer or talking to a peer and saying, how's your CMDB? And I never remember anybody saying it's amazing. We have all the asset information, it's up to date, and we can pivot very quickly. But fundamentally, like, it's not just a security issue, right? In any security team, security operations program, like, one of the fundamental things I need is anytime I have an incident or an issue or a vulnerability, I need to pivot very quickly to understand about that asset. Without that, like, how do you take action, right? It's very hard. And so analysts spend a lot of time trying to pull that information together and figure out, like, the relevance in the context of the asset. If you take that a step further, like, even prior to security, from an IT side of the house, that's the core fundamental platform on which everything is built for IT, right? And so that we've gone so far with a really poor implementation across just all enterprises from an asset inventory system, and truly having a way to capture that, I think, is a problem, right? And I think we underplay that too much. We don't spend enough time talking about that and addressing kind of root cause. I call it chasing the shiny ball. We do that in security, right? We go after things that have very low return but are very, very expensive because they're all the rage. When if we spent money on the hygiene, it's really actually very inexpensive, right? Solving the problem of vulnerability management in reality isn't that expensive compared to many of the other technologies that are kind of in vogue today. But we don't. It's still a problem, right? And so for me, that's the core element that we need to fix, and we need to fix across the enterprise. So what I've done in the past in several different organizations now is I've tried to be that good corporate citizen, and I've provided, because Qualys has the ability to capture, you mentioned software information, right? But it captures essentially all the information about the asset. There's things that it can't capture, like who's the owner, potentially location, those kind of things, and that does need enrichment. But at the end of the day, I've got 80% of the problem solved, but just by having that agent deployed and collecting that data. And for things that can't have the agent, I can do authenticated scans, and I can gather some limited data from passive scanning. So I really can get the bulk of the information over to IT and be that good corporate citizen. And that only then helps my security practice out, because I can leverage all that information for response and reaction.
Okay, good. Thank you for that. And I think one of the ways we're looking to trying to solve this issue, where some things like ownership and location and department, etc., which are not traditionally you could say that an agent cannot really capture that. So the way we're looking to solve that is with the dynamic asset tagging, right? So at least be able to provide capabilities around looking at the system and making some sort of an estimate that if you have this software running and it has this particular thing in the registry key, you can attribute this to maybe a finance machine, or this could be an HR machine, etc. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done today for us to be really as a community in security and IT to be able to get to that level. So I think this is great feedback from that perspective. So I'm going to take one last question, which is around antivirus, right? So anti-malware, antivirus, and the question is that included as part of the Qualys solution? And as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, as we all know, EDR is really there to be able to capture the telemetry of everything that's happening around the compromise, and catch things that your antivirus doesn't see or can miss. And so we are currently working with being able to OEM and implement a anti-malware, antivirus capability that will be built into that same agent, so you can get those capabilities for some customers who would like to have a different provider than they have right now. That is being built, and towards the end of the year, as I mentioned in the presentation already, we will have that capability so that you can eliminate another agent and more than the elimination of the agent, which of course is helpful, it's also the ability to actually get that context already provided in a single place. So that's essentially what we are looking to do and looking forward. And again, thank you very much, Vishal and Ben, for your insightful vision here and the things that you have provided our listeners to go back and think about how today we are doing vulnerability management, configuration assessment, EDR as different silos, and look at the Qualys capability, the Qualys option, and really provide us that feedback. So as I mentioned earlier, please go to qualys.com/EDR and try it out and give us some feedback. And we're looking forward to doing more and helping consolidate more capabilities through the Qualys platform. So thank you, everybody. Thank you very much, and stay safe, and see you around soon.
Thank you, Sumedh.
Thank you, Sumedh.